My phone wouldn't stop ringing. I was in the Atlanta airport, exhausted after spending 4 weeks touring aircraft manufacturing facilities across 3 states, when my mother-in-law Pearl's name lit up my screen for the 5th time in 10 minutes. "Mabel, what were you thinking?" Her voice hit me like a slap. "How could you dump your daughter on me for an entire month without even asking?" I stopped walking, my carry-on bumping against my legs. "Pearl, what are you talking about?" "Clyde said he'd watch Clara while I was gone. We discussed this." "Watch her?" "Mabel, your husband dropped our granddaughter at my doorstep a month ago and disappeared. He told me you both needed me to babysit because you were traveling together for work." My stomach dropped. "Together? Pearl, I've been alone this entire trip. Clyde was supposed to be home with Clara." The silence stretched between us. Then Pearl's voice came back, quieter now, confused. "He said you two were inspecting facilities overseas. He showed me tickets." I leaned against a concrete pillar, my legs suddenly weak. "Where is he now?" "I assumed he was with you." I called Clyde immediately. It rang 4 times before he answered, and I could hear ocean waves in the background. "Hey babe, you back already?" "Where are you?" My voice came out flat. "Just taking a few days off. Needed to decompress." "Where's Clara?" A pause. "She's with Mom. She loves spending time there." "You left our daughter with your mother for a month without telling me. Where are you, Clyde?" Another pause, longer this time. "Cancun. Alone? Does it matter?" "Answer the question." "I'm with Lydia. Lydia Voss, from Wakefield Aviation." Wakefield Aviation. One of my company's biggest clients. The air left my lungs. "Lydia from their sales team? The one I've been working with on the turbine contracts?" "Yeah. Look, Mabel, being with her just makes everything easier. All the stress from your job, from raising Clara, it just floats away when I'm with her." I closed my eyes. "This isn't the first time, is it?" Silence. 6 months ago. That conference in Denver you said you had to attend. You weren't alone then either, were you? "Mabel, come on." "Who was it?" "Someone from the gym. It doesn't matter. That's over." "And you left Clara with your mother then too. You told her I knew about it." "My mom loves having Clara around." "Your mother thought I abandoned my daughter, twice. Do you understand what you've done?" "You're being dramatic. Clara's fine. Mom's fine. Everyone's fine." "No, Clyde. Everyone is not fine. Come home. Tomorrow. We're meeting at Wakefield Aviation's headquarters." "What? Why?" "Because Lydia works for one of my clients, and you've created a situation that could destroy contracts worth millions of dollars. Because you abandoned our daughter. Because this ends now." "Mabel, you're overreacting." "Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Wakefield Aviation. Both of you better be there." I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking as I called Pearl back to apologize, to explain, to figure out how to pick up Clara. But one thought kept circling through my mind. Wakefield Aviation. Of all the women in the world, he chose someone from a company I worked with. This wasn't just infidelity anymore. This was a professional nightmare waiting to explode. The conference room at Wakefield Aviation felt like a courtroom. I sat across from Lydia Voss and the company president, Harlan McGraw, with Clyde sulking in the chair beside me. He'd flown back overnight, still tan from Cancun, reeking of resentment. Lydia wouldn't meet my eyes. She was younger than I'd pictured, maybe 30, with perfect hair and a designer suit that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Harlan looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. "Mrs. Bonner," Harlan began carefully, "I want to assure you that Wakefield Aviation takes workplace conduct extremely seriously." "Where does my husband work, Mr. McGraw?" Everyone froze. Harlan's eyebrows drew together. "I'm sorry?" I turned to Clyde. "Tell them." His jaw tightened. "I don't see how that's relevant." "Tell them where you work, Clyde." "Sterling Capital Group." The color drained from Harlan's face. Lydia's eyes went wide. "Sterling Capital Group," I repeated slowly. "The foreign investment fund that owns 18% of Wakefield Aviation. The same fund that sits on your board of directors." Harlan stood up so fast his chair rolled backward. "You work for Sterling? You're dating an employee of Sterling Capital?" Lydia found her voice. "I didn't know that mattered." "Didn't know it mattered?" Harlan's voice cracked. "We have explicit policies about relationships with investment fund personnel. It's in your employee handbook. It's in the compliance training you take every year. We weren't dating when the investment happened. That doesn't matter. Any relationship with foreign investment fund employees has to be disclosed immediately. We work on defense contracts, Miss Voss. Aircraft noise reduction systems for the military. Do you understand what insider trading looks like to federal regulators? I pulled out a folder. You're currently working with Summit Airlines on a government-backed project to develop advanced noise reduction technology for their new fleet. That contract is worth $47 million. The technology has dual military applications. Harlan sank back into his chair. The Defense Department audit is in 3 weeks. And if they discover that your sales director has been in an undisclosed relationship with someone from your primary investment fund, someone who could access confidential project timelines, specifications, budget numbers. I never told him anything, Lydia protested. We didn't talk about work. Did you talk about when you'd be traveling? Which cities? Which clients you were meeting? She went quiet. Did he ever ask how the Summit project was going? Just casual conversation, nothing specific? Lydia's silence was answer enough. I turned to Clyde. Did you mention anything to your colleagues at Sterling? Water cooler talk about your girlfriend's big project? I might have mentioned it. I didn't give details. Harlan put his head in his hands. You might have mentioned it, to a foreign investment fund that owns part of this company, while we're working on a defense contract. I'm divorcing Clyde, I said quietly. I'm taking full custody of our daughter, and I'm terminating Titanium Aerospace's contract with Wakefield Aviation, effective immediately. Harlan looked up sharply. Mabel, your company supplies critical components. I can't work with a company whose compliance violations put my own business at risk. I supply parts for defense contractors. One whiff of this scandal, and my reputation is destroyed too. The room fell silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Finally, Harlan spoke. I'll be contacting Sterling Capital directly about Mr. Bonner's conduct. As for Miss Voss, she's suspended pending a full investigation. It wasn't supposed to be this complicated, Clyde muttered. I stood up and gathered my folder. You abandoned our daughter twice to be with women you barely know. You're right, it shouldn't have been complicated at all. The divorce papers were filed within a week. Clyde didn't fight me on custody, probably because fighting would require effort he wasn't willing to spend. Pearl apologized so many times I finally had to tell her we were good, that none of this was her fault. Clara was 7 years old, smart enough to sense something had changed, but young enough that I could shield her from the worst details. Daddy's going to live somewhere else for a while, I told her, brushing her hair before bed. But he still loves you very much. Is it because of me? My heart cracked. No, baby, never because of you. Grown-ups sometimes make choices that don't work out. That's all. She nodded solemnly, already learning to accept what she couldn't control. I hated that she had to learn that lesson so young. Work became my refuge. 2 days after the Wakefield meeting, I got a call from someone named Emmett Turlow at Summit Airlines. He was the executive overseeing the noise reduction project. Mrs. Bonner, I wanted to reach out directly. Wakefield Aviation contacted us about a compliance situation involving your husband and one of their employees. My chest tightened. Mr. Turlow, I want to assure you that Titanium Aerospace had no knowledge. I know. Harlan McGraw explained the timeline. I'm calling because we're making some changes to the project structure. I waited, barely breathing. We're temporarily suspending work with Wakefield Aviation and redistributing most of the project to Blackstone Defense Technologies. They're a competitor in the aerospace manufacturing space. Wakefield will retain only the portions covered by their existing patents. That's a massive reassignment. It's necessary. We can't risk any appearance of impropriety on a government-backed defense contract. But here's why I'm calling you personally. Blackstone specifically requested to work with Titanium Aerospace. They've heard excellent things about your precision components. I sat down slowly. Blackstone wants to work with us? Their VP of Operations, Rufus Haskins, says you're the best in the business for what they need. Cleaner specifications, better quality control, faster turnaround. They want to start next week if you're available. Yes. Absolutely yes. Good. Rufus will reach out tomorrow to discuss details. And Mrs. Bonner? I'm sorry about your personal situation. That can't be easy. After we hung up, I sat in my office for a long time, watching the sun set through the window. The contract with Wakefield had been steady work but always complicated, always requiring me to navigate office politics and unclear requirements. Blackstone was known for being straightforward, professional, and technically excellent. Losing Wakefield might actually be the best thing that ever happened to my business. 3 days later, I met Rufus Haskins in person. He was older than I expected, maybe 50, with gray at his temples and a firm handshake. "Your reputation precedes you, Mrs. Bonner. We're thrilled to have Titanium Aerospace on this project." "Thank you. I'm looking forward to working with Blackstone. My colleague will be your primary contact. He's flying in from our Chicago office next week, Harlan Cross. He'll coordinate all the technical specifications and delivery schedules." The name meant nothing to me then. I had no idea how much that was about to change. Harlan Cross arrived at my facility on a Tuesday morning, carrying a leather portfolio and wearing a smile that made me forget how to think straight for exactly 3 seconds before my professionalism kicked back in. "Mrs. Bonner?" "Harlan Cross from Blackstone." He extended his hand. "Please, call me Mabel." Mrs. Bonner makes me sound like a librarian. Nothing wrong with librarians, my mom was one. His handshake was warm and steady. She always said they were the most powerful people in any building. I laughed, genuinely surprised. "Your mom sounds wise." We spent the morning reviewing specifications for the turbine housings Titanium Aerospace would manufacture. Harlan was technically sharp, asking questions that showed he actually understood the engineering instead of just reading from a script. When I explained a modification I'd made to our aluminum alloy mixture, he leaned forward with real interest. "That's brilliant. The heat dissipation alone would improve efficiency by what? Maybe 8%? 9.3 actually. We tested it last month." Rufus is going to lose his mind when he sees these numbers. The project moved forward smoothly. After years of navigating Wakefield's unclear requirements and constant revision requests, working with Blackstone felt like breathing clean air. They knew what they wanted, communicated clearly, and respected my expertise. Within weeks, we'd produced prototype components that exceeded every specification. The test flight happened on a bright October morning. Engineers from Blackstone, Summit Airlines, and even a few representatives from Wakefield Aviation gathered to watch the demonstration aircraft take off. The new noise reduction system performed flawlessly. Emmett Turlow was grinning when the plane landed. "Gentleman and lady," he announced, "I think we have ourselves a winner." Celebrations broke out. Harlan found me near the hangar. "Your components made the difference. Those housings handled the pressure variations perfectly." "Team effort," I said, but I couldn't stop smiling. "How's your daughter doing, Clara, right?" I was surprised he remembered. "She's good. Actually, she's still staying with her grandmother during the week while I travel for work. I see her on weekends." "That must be hard." "It is. But Pearl's great with her, and Clara seems happy. She loves her grandmother's cooking." "What kind of food does she like?" The question was so unexpected that I almost laughed. Spaghetti and meatballs mostly. Anything with cheese." "Why?" Harlan looked embarrassed. "Sorry, that was random. I just figured if we're going to be working together long term, I should know something about the important people in your life." Something warm spread through my chest. "That's really thoughtful." We stood there for a moment, watching the celebration around us, and I realized this was the first time in months I'd felt genuinely happy about the future. Later, as people were packing up, Harlan approached me again, this time looking uncomfortable. "I saw something yesterday that I wasn't sure I should mention." "What?" "I was having dinner at Giuseppe's downtown, and I saw someone who looked exactly like your ex-husband. He was with a woman. Dark hair, expensive suit. They seemed very cozy." My stomach dropped. "Was the woman named Lydia Voss?" "I don't know, I didn't get close enough to hear names." I forced a smile. "It was probably just someone who looks like him." But I knew better, and judging by the look on Harlan's face, so did he. The project report meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Thursday. Representatives from Blackstone, Titanium Aerospace, Summit Airlines, and yes, even Wakefield Aviation were supposed to present our progress to the Government Oversight Committee. I arrived early, reviewing my notes in the conference room. Emmett Turlow rushed in 20 minutes late, his face the color of a fire engine. "We have a serious problem." Everyone fell silent. Harlan set down his coffee cup. Harlan McGraw from Wakefield looked like he might vomit. Our accounting department discovered irregularities in expense reports submitted by Lydia Voss over the past 6 months. She claimed reimbursement for business trips where she listed meals and hotels for 2 people. When questioned, she said a colleague accompanied her. But no colleague filed for the same trips. My hands went cold. We cross-referenced her expense dates with employee records. Your ex-husband, Mrs. Bonner, Clyde Bonner, took vacation days that corresponded exactly with 3 of those business trips. Harlan McGraw stood up. That's not all. One of our employees reported overhearing restaurant staff gossiping about Miss Voss and her boyfriend. They described him in detail. The description matches Clyde Bonner. They never stopped seeing each other, I said quietly. No, Emmett confirmed, they did not. And there's more. 2 weeks ago, a Sterling Capital associate named Preston Kane was at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. He ran into Clyde Bonner. They had coffee. During that conversation, Clyde mentioned that the Summit Airlines project was ahead of schedule and that test results were exceeding expectations. Rufus Haskins swore under his breath. That's confidential project information. Mr. Kane reported the conversation to his supervisor, who reported it to us. While the information Clyde shared wasn't technically classified, any contact between Sterling Capital personnel and anyone connected to this project during the active development phase is absolutely forbidden. I felt sick. He transferred departments at Sterling after the first incident. We all thought that would end it. Apparently not. Emmett's voice was hard. Miss Voss continued the relationship despite direct warnings from her employer. She fraudulently claimed business expenses to hide the relationship's continuation. And Clyde Bonner demonstrated that he cannot be trusted to maintain appropriate boundaries regarding sensitive projects. Harlan McGraw looked broken. Lydia's being removed from the project effective immediately. She'll likely be fired by end of week. I'll be filing a report with the Financial Services Agency about the expense fraud and the undisclosed relationship. I found my voice. Where is she now? Human Resources is meeting with her. I stood up. I want to talk to her. Emmett started to object, but Harlan Cross touched my arm gently. Are you sure? I need her to understand what she's done. They led me to a smaller conference room where Lydia sat with a box of tissues. Mascara streaked down her face. When she saw me, she looked away. Did you think the rules didn't apply to you? I asked. I loved him. You loved him so much that you destroyed your career? You committed expense fraud? You put a $47 million defense contract at risk? I didn't mean for any of this to happen. That's your problem, Lydia. You never thought about what would happen. You just thought about what felt good in the moment. If you'd actually listened 6 months ago, if you'd cut ties when you were supposed to, none of this would be happening. She started crying harder. You could have had a brilliant career. Instead, you have nothing. And for what? A man who abandoned his own daughter? Twice? That's who you thought was worth all this. She had no answer. There was no answer that would make any of this make sense. 3 weeks later, Pearl called me while I was reviewing production schedules. Mabel, honey, I need to tell you something about Clyde. I braced myself. What now? He got fired from Sterling Capital. Someone named Gerald Reeves called me looking for him. Said they'd been trying to reach him for days. Apparently the whole situation with that Wakefield woman and the defense contract was the final straw. They'd already moved him to a different department after the first incident. This was his last chance, and he blew it. Part of me felt vindicated, the larger part just felt tired. Did you tell Gerald where Clyde is? I don't know where Clyde is. He hasn't answered my calls in 2 weeks. I wasn't surprised. Clyde had a pattern of disappearing when consequences caught up with him. If he contacts you, let me know. We still need to finalize custody arrangements. Of course, dear. How's Clara? She's drawing pictures of airplanes now. I think she wants to be an engineer. Pearl laughed. She's definitely your daughter. The full story emerged in pieces over the next month. Lydia was officially terminated from Wakefield Aviation. She applied to 6 other aerospace companies and got rejected from all of them. Word traveled fast in the industry, and nobody wanted to touch someone with compliance violations and expense fraud on their record. Desperate and unemployed, Lydia apparently leaned on Clyde for support. That lasted exactly 2 weeks before he showed up at her apartment, with a woman named Miranda Finch from Wakefield's planning department. According to the story that made its way back to me through industry gossip, he'd fallen for Miranda and was breaking up with Lydia. Lydia, in a final act of spite, reported the new relationship to Wakefield Aviation. It didn't involve classified projects or compliance violations, but it added another mark to Clyde's growing reputation as a liability. Sterling Capital, already done with him, accelerated his termination process. Then Clyde apparently got involved with someone he described to his brother as being in a really bad position and had to leave town quickly. His brother wouldn't elaborate, but the way he said it suggested Clyde had finally picked the wrong person to mess around with. Meanwhile, my business was thriving. The Blackstone contract led to 3 more defense contracts. My precision components were becoming known as the industry gold standard. I hired 4 new engineers and expanded the facility. Clara had started calling Pearl Grammy and me Mama at work and Mama at home, depending on the day. It hurt that I couldn't be with her full time, but she seemed genuinely happy splitting time between us. And then there was Harlan. He'd started finding excuses to visit the facility more often than the project probably required. We'd extended meetings over coffee. He'd asked about Clara, remembered her favorite foods, and brought her a model airplane kit when he found out she was interested in engineering. "I'm not trying to overstep," he'd said carefully. "I just think she's a cool kid." "She is a cool kid," I'd agreed. "She gets it from her mom." I'd smiled at that, felt something flutter in my chest that I hadn't felt in years. Hope, maybe. Or just the recognition that not all men were like Clyde. Some actually kept their promises. The final project presentation happened on a crisp morning in March. The noise reduction system had exceeded every metric. Summit Airlines was thrilled. The Defense Department was impressed. Blackstone Defense Technologies secured a 10-year contract extension, and Titanium Aerospace was named as their exclusive supplier for precision turbine components. Emmett Turlow shook my hand after the presentation. "You helped save this project, Mabel. When the Wakefield situation threatened everything, you stepped up and delivered." "I just did my job." "You did more than that. You maintained integrity when it would have been easier to look the other way. That matters." After the meeting, Harlan found me in the parking lot. "So, I have a potentially crazy idea." "I'm listening." "There's a new aviation museum opening in Street Louis next weekend. They have a whole section on aerospace engineering history. I thought maybe you and Clara might want to check it out, with me. If that's not weird." I felt my face warm. "That's not weird." "Yeah?" "Clara would love it. She's been asking about how jet engines work, and I keep promising to show her but haven't found time." "Great, I'll send you the details." He started to walk away, then turned back. "Mabel, I'm glad things worked out the way they did. Not the whole situation with your ex-husband, obviously. That was terrible, but I'm glad our paths crossed." "Me too." The museum trip was magical. Clara was vibrant and curious, asking a million questions that Harlan answered patiently and thoroughly. When we stopped for lunch at the museum cafe, she looked between us with an expression far too knowing for a 7-year-old. "Grammy says you're Mama's special friend." I nearly choked on my sandwich. Harlan grinned. "Your Grammy is a very smart lady. She says you take good care of Mama. That's important because Mama takes care of everybody else." "Clara," I protested weakly. "It's true. Grammy says it all the time." Harlan reached across the table and squeezed my hand briefly. "Your Grammy is right about that too." That evening, after we'd dropped Clara at Pearl's house, Harlan walked me to my car. "Your mother-in-law seems like she's campaigning pretty hard on my behalf." Ex-mother-in-law. And yes, she absolutely is. I'm sorry if that's uncomfortable. It's not uncomfortable, it's nice. My mom did the same thing after my divorce. She'd find excuses to mention single women she knew, leave articles about dating after 40 lying around. She just wanted me to be happy. "Are you? Happy, I mean?" He looked at me for a long moment. "Getting there. You?" "Getting there too." A year later, we celebrated the completion of the expanded noise reduction system at a company dinner. Clara was there, wearing a dress Pearl had bought her, formally thanking Harlan for taking good care of Mama in a speech she'd clearly rehearsed with her grandmother. I was embarrassed. Harlan was charmed. The Blackstone executives thought it was adorable. Later, as we walked through the parking lot with Clara between us, she grabbed both our hands and swung between us, laughing. "This is the best day ever." She was wrong, actually. The best day would come 2 years later, when Harlan proposed on the factory floor where we'd first met, with Clara hiding behind a turbine housing, holding a sign that said, Please say yes, Mama. But this day was pretty close.